The smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, a familiar perfume of late November, usually brought a quiet solace. My farmhouse, nestled deep in the Appalachian foothills, was my sanctuary after 40 years dissecting the crooked dealings of men who thought they were smarter than the IRS. Eleanor had loved this place. 2 years gone, and the silence still hummed with her absence, a low-frequency ache I'd grown accustomed to. This morning, though, the silence was fractured. My ham radio setup occupied a corner of the basement, a testament to a pre-digital era fascination with long-range communication. Today, something was off. A faint, unnatural sheen on the dusty transceiver. Not dust, polish, and the distinct, cloying scent of cheap men's cologne, the kind Caleb, my grandson, favored. He'd walked in unannounced around 9 a.m., all fidgeting hands and a too-wide smile. His left foot, I noticed, tapped a frantic rhythm against the concrete floor, a drummer boy signaling panic. "Just checking in, Grandpa," he'd said, his voice a little too loud, a little too bright. Help. The man couldn't balance his own checkbook, let alone manage a portfolio. He'd borrowed from me 5 times in the last 2 years, totaling nearly $60,000. I'd always treated it as a loan, though Eleanor, bless her pragmatic soul, had called it enabling. 30 years in financial forensics taught me that intent is invisible, but a paper trail is not. And sometimes the trail starts with a misplaced scent or a jittery foot. Caleb's eyes darted from the radio to the old metal filing cabinet where I kept some of Eleanor's personal effects, documents I hadn't had the heart to sort through. His gaze lingered too long. "Everything okay down here?" I asked, my voice deceptively mild.
"Perfect, Grandpa. Just making sure you're comfortable." He backed away, tripping slightly over the threshold, a stark contrast to the effortless grace I remembered from when he was a boy, chasing fireflies in the yard. He left as quickly as he'd arrived, the slam of his truck. "Perfect, Grandpa. Just making sure you're comfortable." He backed away, tripping slightly over the threshold, a stark contrast to the effortless grace I remembered from when he was a boy, chasing fireflies in the yard. He left as quickly as he'd arrived, the slam of his truck door echoing in the sudden stillness. But the scent of his cologne and the image of his frantic foot-tapping remained. The sheen on the radio felt deliberate, a carefully placed breadcrumb or a booby trap. In 3 hours, the FBI would knock on my door, and my grandson would wish he'd never been born. I waited until Caleb's beat-up pickup disappeared down the winding dirt road, its tires spitting gravel. The silence returned, heavier this time, laced with suspicion. I descended the basement steps, the air growing colder, denser. The scent of that cheap cologne seemed to cling to the shadows. My eyes went directly to the transceiver. The polish wasn't just a sheen, it was a smear, obscuring the manufacturer's serial number. Amateurish, desperate. My gloved fingers, a habit ingrained from countless crime scenes, gently probed the area around the radio. Nothing. Then I noticed it, a slight discoloration on the base of the wooden shelf beneath the ham equipment, near the back. A smudge of something dark, sticky. I carefully scraped a minuscule sample into a sterile evidence file I kept in my upstairs office for just-in-case scenarios, a habit that now felt like prophecy.
Back upstairs, the smell of brewing coffee couldn't mask the metallic tang of unease in my mouth. I examined the vial under my desk lamp. Dark soil, yes, but mixed with something else. Fine crystalline particles. Accelerant? No, too fine. More like powdered chemicals. My mind, trained to dissect financial chaos, began assembling the fragments. Caleb's debts, his frantic behavior, the planted evidence. It wasn't just about him getting caught. It was about him creating a smokescreen. He'd discovered my old, discreet offshore account, one set up decades ago for a deep cover operation I'd never spoken of, Eleanor the only one who knew. A legacy account, supposedly dormant, used for sensitive work. He must have found the dormant crypto wallet keys I kept tucked away with Eleanor's papers. He wasn't just trying to frame me for money laundering, he was trying to make it look like I was laundering his illicit funds, using the crypto as the source. The forged invoices, the undeclared cash, all planted to corroborate his false narrative. The FBI would find the evidence, trace the supposed consulting payments back to phantom companies I supposedly owned, and the crypto transfers would seal the deal. My career, my reputation, my life's work, reduced to ash by my own grandson. A wave of grief, sharp and unexpected, washed over me. Not just for Eleanor, but for the boy who used to bring me dandelions. He wasn't just desperate, he was actively trying to destroy me. He needed money, fast. The SEC's investigation into his Ponzi scheme was surely imminent. He saw me, his comfortable, retired grandpa, as a final, deep well of cash to tap, and then an obstacle to be removed. But they forgot one thing. I've spent 40 years chasing ghosts in the numbers. Caleb was just a typo in a much larger ledger, and typos get corrected.
Confrontation was pointless. Caleb was beyond reason, drowning in desperation. My skills, however, were perfectly suited for this. Time was the enemy, but also my ally. The FBI would follow the obvious trail, the one Caleb had so meticulously laid. I needed to divert their gaze, gently, surgically. I retrieved the small vial from my office, the crystalline particles, not an accelerant, too fine, almost like activated charcoal, used in certain filtration processes. Interesting. First, the physical evidence. Underneath the ham radio, in the back of the filing cabinet drawer where Caleb had clearly rummaged, I found a few stray hairs. Using tweezers, I collected them into another vial. Then the cash, bundles of 50s and 100s, banded with generic paper wrappers. Too clean. I bagged them carefully. The forged invoices were stapled together, sitting right on top of a pile of old QSL cards, proof of my radio contacts. He wanted it found easily. I removed them. Now the MacGuffin itself, the ham radio. It was old, reliable. I powered it down. Caleb had left his greasy fingerprints all over the casing. Good. He'd also plugged in a small portable hard drive, the kind used for quick data dumps. I unplugged it. Back in my office, Eleanor's favorite jazz record, Billie Holiday, spun softly on the turntable, a counterpoint to the frantic calculations whirring in my head. The particles. Maybe Caleb had tried to add something to Eleanor's old ledger books, things I kept in the filing cabinet. A solvent, perhaps, to obscure older entries. The charcoal was likely a residue from his attempt to clean it up. In '89, I helped dismantle a network smuggling bearer bonds across the border. They used microdot technology and coded messages hidden in classified ads. The key was understanding their methodology, their blind spots. Caleb's blind spot was arrogance. He assumed I was just an old man, fading into dotage.
I took the hard drive and plugged it into my secure laptop, running it through multiple sandboxes. Nothing overtly malicious, but lots of metadata, timestamps, file access logs. He'd clearly copied files from his own compromised computer onto here. I wiped the drive clean, using a military-grade software, then reformatted it. Into the filing cabinet it went. Then I took the bundles of cash, the invoices, and the crypto records he'd planted. I placed them carefully into a sturdy canvas bag. Caleb had parked his truck near the barn. He'd forgotten a duffel bag he'd brought in.
Inside, a change of clothes, a half-eaten bag of chips, and a burner phone. Perfect. Using nitrile gloves, I transferred the planted evidence into the duffel bag, tucking it deep into a side pocket. I then drove Caleb's truck. He'd left the keys in the ignition, the fool, a mile down the road, and parked it discreetly behind a thicket of overgrown rhododendrons, the cold rain plastering fallen leaves against the windshield. My own car, a sensible sedan that blended into any rural landscape, would be my transport when the time came. I needed to make sure the investigators found his trail first. I deleted all the digital logs from my secure laptop, leaving no trace of my activity. The setup was complete. Let the games begin. 2 hours later, precisely at 12:15 p.m., the distant wail of sirens grew closer. An unmarked sedan and 2 state trooper cruisers rolled silently up my gravel driveway. 3 agents, 2 troopers. Professional, calm. I met them at the door, hands visible, posture neutral. Mr. Sterling, the lead agent, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, stated, "We have a report of suspicious financial activity originating from this residence. We'd like to conduct a search."
"Of course, Agent," I replied, stepping aside. "Please, come in. I have nothing to hide." Inside, Caleb appeared, stepping out from behind a large oak tree near the house, feigning surprise. His left foot immediately began its frantic tap dance against the damp earth. "Grandpa, what's going on?" he exclaimed, rushing forward. "Officers, I was so worried. I came by earlier, and he seemed confused. I found this bag near the barn," he gestured, pointing to the canvas bag containing the evidence I'd planted in his duffel. "And I think it might be important." His voice cracked with false concern. My stomach churned. The agents exchanged a look. One of them, a younger man, nodded towards the basement. "We'll start down there, sir." I watched them descend, Caleb hovering anxiously at the top of the stairs, his eyes darting between the agents and me. They systematically searched the basement, moving the ham radio equipment, checking the filing cabinet. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The air crackled with unspoken tension. "Doesn't look like anything here, Detective," the younger agent called up after a long silence. "Just some old radio gear." Caleb's face fell. Panic flared in his eyes. "No, that's impossible. He was talking about it. About the accounts," he blurted out, his voice escalating. "Check the filing cabinet again. The old letters." The lead agent's gaze sharpened, flicking from Caleb's desperate face to my calm one. She walked back up the stairs, her eyes scanning the living room. She paused by the armchair where Eleanor used to read, then moved towards the hallway leading to the bedrooms. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her tone shifting, becoming more direct. "You mentioned a dormant offshore account earlier, a classified operation?" I met her gaze evenly. "It was a long time ago, Agent. Government work. Utmost discretion required."
She nodded slowly. "We intercepted a communication on Mr. Finch's burner phone an hour ago. He was coordinating with an offshore contact regarding securing assets and eliminating liabilities. Specifically mentioned a patriotic old man's accounts." She turned, gesturing to the younger agent. "We found this duffel bag in Mr. Finch's truck. Inside, we found bundles of undeclared cash, forged invoices for consulting services, and records indicating transfers from a cryptocurrency wallet linked to an entity flagged for major fraud." Caleb stared, aghast. "No, that's what you planted," he stammered, turning on me, his foot tapping furiously. "You framed me, you old—" I stepped forward, my voice low, steady. "You played a game you couldn't win, Caleb. You forgot about the people who actually taught me how to play." He recoiled as if struck. You knew? All this time?" His bravado evaporated, replaced by raw fear and a dawning, terrible realization. I looked at him, not with triumph, but with a profound weariness. "Yes, Caleb, I knew." The 2 troopers moved in, flanking him. The clicking of handcuffs was a stark punctuation mark to the end of our family. 6 months have passed.
the Appalachian foothill and foot-blanketed in the soft white hush of a North Georgia winter. My farmhouse feels less like a sanctuary and more like a memory keeper now. I sold it, moved closer to my daughter, Sarah, and her family, into a small, tidy bungalow in Asheville. It's a trade-off, the quiet solitude for the comforting chaos of grandchildren. My mornings are different. No more dusty basement radios. Instead, a steaming mug of Earl Grey tea, the local newspaper, and a quiet hour watching the sunrise paint the Blue Ridge Mountains. The jazz records are still here, though. Sometimes I put on Miles Davis, let the cool, melancholic notes fill the rooms. It's a reminder of where I came from and who I was before Eleanor left, before Caleb's betrayal.
I heard Caleb took a plea deal. 7 years. The SEC dropped their investigation into him specifically, folding it into the larger federal case. He'll be nearly 40 when he gets out. His Ponzi scheme collapsed spectacularly, tarnishing his name and costing countless investors their savings. He never contacted me. I wouldn't have answered if he had. Betrayal cuts deep, especially when it comes from your own blood. Eleanor always said loyalty was a currency that couldn't be faked. Caleb spent his inheritance, his future, and our family's trust on a desperate gamble. I did what I had to do, not for revenge, but for restoration. To protect myself, yes, but also to ensure that the mistakes of my hidden past, the risks I took for my country, weren't twisted into a weapon against my present. Sometimes I wonder if there was another way. Could I have reached him? Could I have shown him that true wealth wasn't in laundered cash, but in integrity? The thought is fleeting, like a shadow passing over the sun. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can only ensure they don't drag you down with them. This morning, a small cardinal lands on the feeder outside my window, a bright splash of red against the white snow. It chirps, pecks at the seeds, and flies away, a tiny, independent spirit. I smile. There are new connections to be made, new rhythms to learn. The past is a ledger, balanced and closed. The future is unwritten.